You should know that, till 2011, we all thought that, the person who kind of discovered greenhouse gas was John Tyndall, because he was famous. Because of him, we know that the sky is blue, right? It was in 2011 when one retired petroleum geologist, Roy Sorensen, he was looking through some of the very old journals, and he found that 3 years before John Tyndall did this, there was a lady by the name Eunice Newton Foote. She had discovered and she has published a paper. And it's sad that she was not allowed to present the paper. Actually, one of her male colleagues was asked to present, because women at that time were not allowed to present the papers. And it was only in 2011 we came to know that it was Eunice Newton Foote, 3 years before John Tyndall, who did these experiments. And I'm talking about 1859, when we knew that carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, in the sense that her experiments proved that higher concentration of carbon dioxide warms faster, as well as it keeps the warmth for a longer duration. Those were her experiments. So just on that particular note, let me get started. And of course, there was some discussion about, Professor Suresh also talked about tree plantation. It is really appalling to see where people are planting the trees. I have seen tree plantations in grasslands. Now, we call it as a grassland ecosystem for a reason. It is supposed to be grasslands. You're not supposed to plant trees there. Anyway, so with that kind of a context, let me get into, you asked me to kind of talk about the outcomes of the COP and the masterclass which I am presenting in terms of the role of standards in the world of sustainability. And I start that masterclass by an adaptation of my view of Amartya Sen in the book of Idea of Justice, where Amartya Sen says that if you want to deliver justice, which he says as nyaya to the society, there are two things which are required, which is niyat, the intention, and niti, which is, where he mentions niti as is institutions, regulations, standards. These are the things you require. So it is not just enough that you have the intention, which is the niyat alone, which will deliver justice to society. It is the niti as well. So it's both the niyat, the intention, as well as the strong kind of policies as well as standards, which are both required. And that's kind of the role which sustainability standards play, that even if you have the intention, for you to deliver it properly, you require the standards. Now, let me connect it to the COP in this particular case. So I'll make it fast, in the sense that, in the past 2-3 COPs, we have seen that finance is one of the critical areas of discussion, right? But there is a lot of talk, nothing much has happened, but that's another thing. But finance is a topic. Now let's look at finance. When you say we require finance and how the finance is deployed, how will we know, or how will we look at whether the finance is going into the right kind of places? And that's where some kind of standardization helps. Like, that's what the taxonomy helps. For example, India government released the draft of the climate finance taxonomy, and the reason why a taxonomy is released, because it says that these kind of areas are recognized as areas. So if you're financing, or let me put it this way, EU has a sustainable finance taxonomy. They ask the financial companies to report on that, and they say that how much of your investment go into projects which are aligned to the taxonomy, and how much is going which is not aligned. So you clearly distinguish that this is the finance which is going into climate change, and this is going to climate change mitigation. So that is where the kind of standards kind of help. Now let me give you another example from COP30. We kind of it came out with we need kind of, how do you measure adaptation? There was quite a bit of discussion on the COP30. And what the COP30 did was, it came out with a set of indicators under the global goal on adaptation, to help track progress. Now, if you want to track progress as well, these kind of standardized matrices and all those things are kind of required. The biggest discussion in this COP30, and I kind of sarcastically did a post saying that the final outcome was just. Now, just has many meanings, but the real thing is just transition. And the whole of the just transition, when we say that we need, we have to agree to support the workers and the communities, because when you're moving towards a low carbon economy, there are quite a bit of people who are going to get impacted, and how do you get a kind of a fair transition for them? And when we are talking about such kind of things as well, these are standards. You require the kind of standardizations and this thing. So the sustainability standards do help in all these ways relating to the COP30 as well. But beyond it, in the masterclass, what I'm discussing is about 10 streams of sustainability standards. I'm talking about process standards, disclosure standards, thematic standards, labeling standards, benchmark standards, product footprint standards, impact measurement standards, sector specific standards, ethical standards, finance and investment standards. So there is a whole family of standards under the sustainability standards itself. And the idea is that I'll go back to where I started with, borrowing from my adaptation from Amartya Sen, is that, we might have good intentions, but those good intentions, for it to precipitate as good to the planet as well as to the people, we require niti, and these niti, one part of the niti is having these kind of standards, and that is what the masterclass would be addressing. So I'll stop there. Thank you.